Today, inside of Cinema 4D and Redshift, we're going to create a magical crystal because you can make anything in 3D, and I thought it would be fun. So this is what I've created here. You can see it in my viewport. It's rendering, and I'm really excited to go through this process with you of how I had created this. And this works from all different angles. So if I move around, you can see that it updates. And this is a combination of modeling and texturing. So this is made up of 2 layers, and I'll go into that. 2 layers and 2 textures. So if I actually turn off the outer layer, you can see that we have this spiky kind of organic form inside. But I think what's cool is inside of Cinema 4D, instead of creating an illusion of there being this level of detail on the inside, it's really easy to make something that looks really organic. So we're gonna create this here. I'm going to open up a new project. And a great way to start off is a sphere. So we'll navigate over to our primitives, and I'll drop in a sphere here. Okay, now we're going to need more of these. We're going to need another one. I'm going to first turn on my garage shading lines, because although it's okay to have this formation for the first sphere, when I make it the second one, I'll actually hide the first one here for a moment by clicking that check mark. Now we just have this one showing. I'm going to change it to hexahedron, because we're actually going to need this to deform. And not only are we going to need it to deform, but we're probably going to need it to have more segments, because we need this to look really detailed. So something like that will probably do for right now. And we're going to need to put a displacer inside of it. So in here, if you hold a click on the deformers, you'll find a displacer. And if you hold shift, it'll drop it within the hierarchy of the sphere. And now that we have this set up, we can go ahead and navigate over to our shading tab. And we're going to want to click on this drop-down arrow here, because we'll want to add in a noise. So now you can see we're starting to get a texture here, but if you click on here, you'll actually see that you have all these different noises you can choose from. So it's really fun, and you can see a preview of it. And I'd really mostly rely on the preview you're seeing in this window as you're clicking through these, because you'll notice that we're going to need actually even more detail to this to be able to see it. So could try any one of these. I find for myself personally, the higher contrast it is, the better it looks. Let me tell you which one I used for the original version. And here I had used Nutritious. So I think that's a pretty cool looking one. So I think we could go with something similar to that again. But this electric also looks cool. So if you want to replicate the last one exactly, I used that other one. Now you can adjust the clipping on this. So if you want it to even be a little bit more intense, you can do so in here by just adjusting the clipping or the contrast. I'm going to drop the sphere within a subdivision surface by holding Alt. And I want to adjust this further. So in our Object tab, I'm going to adjust the height. So now you can see that we're getting something a little bit different in here. And we can have our original sphere show up, and then we can just scale all of this stuff inside of it so that it looks a lot neater, but still all there as that shape. And one more thing that I'd like to show you is that you can scale your noise. So if you feel like you aren't getting quite the effect you want, you can scale it. So under shading, you'll see that you have this global scale, and you can make it even larger if you'd like to. And play around with how that makes it look. So I think that's a pretty interesting look there. And let's add back on our sphere and create some materials. So what we'll need to do is add in a PBR material. And I'll name this one outer layer. I'll drop this onto the sphere, and now that we have that in order, we can hit Start IPR and start visualizing our material. So right now it's plain and white, and that's pretty boring, and it's also going to be difficult to visualize it without any light source. So I'm going to go ahead and add in what is called a dome light, a Redshift dome light, and then I can navigate over to our menu over here, and we can search for an HDRI. So this is like a map you can use in order to light your scene that you can enter from 360 degrees. So from here we can choose an environment that we like the appearance of. I'll drag and drop this one in here, and we'll see it update in a moment. So this is our new environment, and it'll give us an idea for right now of how this is looking. As we adjust our material. So I'm going to click on the PBR material, and right off the bat, I know that I want to use subsurface scattering, so I'm going to turn this all the way up. And I want to make the coloring a little bit more dramatic, so I'm going to add in a little bit more blue. And this can be more so like that. And you can play around with adjusting the radius. And then from here, I'd like to increase the transmission. So you can see the difference that makes when it's all the way clear and a little bit less clear, and the effect that's having on the appearance of our crystal. Now, I think that this surface actually needs a little bit more detail in it. It's kind of boring as it is. So if we go back into our asset browser, you can also search for something called scratches, and it will bring up a ton of different maps you can use to simulate scratches. So maybe we want to use this one here. I'll drag and drop this into here, and I can use this as a bump map. So I'm going to add in a bump map node here. Drop that into our scene, and now I can connect the scratches to the input of the bump map, and this will create a bumpy scratch texture on our object. You can see a preview of it here. And now if I zoom in really close, you can see these really cool looking scratches on here. And you can use these to even control the roughness on the object. So if you want to go ahead and try that, you can. I do, however, suggest that if you want to adjust the roughness with it, you may also want to add in a color correction node. Something important to keep in mind with these maps, and specifically the roughness maps, is that the darker the color, the shinier it is. So let's go ahead and look for a color correct. So we're going to go ahead and drop in our color correct in here, and I'll connect it like that and drop this into the roughness. You can see the roughness over there. Now with the color correct, we can do a few things. We can adjust the gamma, which will make it look darker. So now we're going to have a shinier object. And I actually like that quite a bit. Now the inner surface isn't very interesting, and we can make some adjustments to it to make it a little bit more interesting. So I want to play around with that some. So let's go ahead and create a new PBR material, open PBR material, and I'll drop this onto our inner sphere. And right now it's just white, and that's kind of boring. So we'll click on this and open it. Let's add some transmission to it, which will give it some transparency. And let's go ahead and add in a noise. So the max on noise or the regular noise, you can choose either one of these. But what they'll do is allow you to create a noise. I might even try the max on noise. I feel like the max on noise gives you some more options than just the regular noise. So if we use the max on noise, you'll have more types you can choose from as far as noises go. Like I can choose this one. And then you can pick the colors that are going to be used for this. So if I were to add this to here, I'm just going to, first of all, turn off this outer sphere so that we can see it better. But you can see that's our inner material right now. And we're adding this color to it, which is very interesting. And you can even try playing around with this more, like maybe we want this to be like a dark blue. But this is all very experimental, and it's a lot of fun. Maybe we want to do something like that, make this crystal look a little bit more icy. And then we can turn back on the outer layer. And maybe we want to play around with this some more. So it's a push and pull between the two materials and just experimenting with them and getting looks that you like. Like you can see as I make this more transparent, how that appears. Dark in here. So I may want to adjust that. Something else you can play around with is actually using this to control emission luminance. And you may even want to control that separately, so I can make a duplicate of this and control the luminance in here. So you could even give this a little bit of a glow capability. And now if I turn off the light, you can see that it's actually glowing, which can be a cool effect if that's something you want to go for. Is a crystal that can glow in the dark, so that's totally optional. I'm going to turn back on the dome light here for a moment. I think I'll change this back to white and adjust the colors overall to be a little bit lighter. Something else I might do is make a copy, and then I can try other effects with this. Like, what if I want to try playing around with the specular color? Maybe I want the specular color to be something different, like that. I can play around with the IOR. So that gives you a really interesting effect, adjusting the IOR in here. It almost seems to glisten a little bit more. So this is super fun, and yeah, so mess around with the specular, mess around with the IOR. The IOR is your index of refraction. So that's what you're adjusting when you adjust this. You can try experimenting with anisotropy as well. Thing that I'd like to show you is that you can actually control what part of your crystal that the displacer is affecting using something called a field. So you'll see all different kinds of fields in here. If I add in a spherical field, I can drop this within the Fields tab of my displacer while my displacer is selected. So I'll go ahead and drop that in there. And then if I move this field, you'll see that the displacer is only affecting the area in which there is the field here. So that way you don't have to have this affecting the entire crystal, and it makes it look a little bit more natural when not everything is being affected in the same exact way. Because in nature, things aren't usually the same throughout. I'm going to increase the size of the displacer just a little bit. And then move it up. So I'm really liking how it kind of is a little bit less even. I think that these scratch marks are a little bit heavy, so I'm going to actually go back into this outer layer material, and I can go into the bump map and I can just reduce the height scale a little bit in here to something closer to 0. We can even see what this looks like if I were to unplug this and just make it completely shiny without any scratches. I might try something like 0.1. That looks much better to me, with it being a little bit less even. It just comes off as a more realistic, natural thing you could find in the world, which I think is good. So there we go. It's really an experimental thing. I just wanted to show you my process of playing around with this and making crystals, in case if you need to make a crystal or you just feel like making things for fun. But regardless, thank you for being here with me, exploring this with me. And if you're interested, I offer one-on-one coaching for Cinema 4D and Redshift. Also, if you would like to join our Discord server, the Discord server is free, so I'd love for you to join us. And you can share your work and anything that you make there and ask questions as well. Thank you so much for joining us here on Ambient 3D Animations. I hope to see you here next time.